Guys, welcome back. Today we did the H20 to go. Now I did it differently because that's who I am. I can't help myself. But it's not very differently. The only difference is I have put, let me take that out. I have put my swivel clips attached to the bag instead of the D-ring. And the reason I did this, I do explain it, is because now I can take off that handle and still attach my drink bottle holder to other things. So I can clip it to a backpack or wherever I want. So apart from that, I did everything else the same. I've also, before today, never sewed one of these, so I was following the instructions for you to make sure I did it in the right order as well. So if you'd like to see how I make this, please stay tuned. Alright guys, so let's get started. Now I have never made one of these before. I haven't actually even skimmed through the instructions yet. But I do know that I'm going to start with my strap, because straps are always done in the same way. I am using all fabric for this strap because I don't have any webbing, but I think it's still going to look nice. So I'm going to do it anyway. So I've just double folded everything. So it's been folded in half to the center and then in half again to hide all of my raw edges. And then I'm just going to sew 1/8 of an inch down the edge. I'm sure if you've watched any of my videos, you've seen me do straps before. Just tuck it in. And then we're sewing, and we always stop with the needle down because it's much easier to readjust as you go. If you have the needle up, your fabric's more likely to move while I'm readjusting everything. I also could have put clips down the side or even pins because there's no vinyl in this strap. Tuck the edges in like this. A needle down and pivot. And then we're going to go back up the other side. This side is always quicker because I don't have to adjust anything. Needle down, pivot, and then seal off that end. Okay. So I can pop this, actually I'll put the hardware on. So I'm getting an adjuster strap. I actually won't be selling this type anymore because I like the new style I got better. But I'm just using up the last of them. So I'm going to stitch across. And then go up on an angle. I'm going to do my little crisscross, but just a small one. And then I'm going to twist it, go across there, and then diagonally down, and then back stitch to lock all of that in. So that's now on. Now I'm going to do something different to the pattern. I've thought about this long and hard. I'm actually going to put the D-rings on here and put the clips on the bag. And this might seem weird to you, but now if I do it this way, if I want to, I can take the strap off and then I'll just be able to clip the drink bottle holder to like a backpack or something. So I've thought long and hard about this and I've decided that this is the way I want to go. So I'm going to add my D-rings to my strap and then these will go where the D-rings would have gone. So again, I'm going to do my zigzag. And again, you don't have to do it this way. You can do the way the pattern says. Most people do. I just like things that are a bit more multifunctional. So for me personally, I could make one of these for myself, for my drink bottle, and attach it to my horse saddle, which is why I've thought about this. Pretty much the only reason. Horse riding is my only hobby, so I think, how can I incorporate things I make into my horse riding? So that's now my strap done. I know it looks weird with the D-rings there, but this is how I want to make them. Okay, so now we're going to actually follow the instructions. So we're going to get our zipper. So we want this to be, oh, mine's a little bit long. It's important to get the right size zip. I'm going to use my zipper scissors to cut it off. I'm trying not to go crooked. I get a nice straight line. Now I'm just going to melt the end of the zip just slightly with a cigarette lighter. I want to try and use the blue part of the flame so that I don't discolor the zip. Even though you're not going to see it, it's not really the point. And I forgot to get a zipper pull. So let's do that now. I'm just going to use one of my chunkies. So I'm going to split the zip open and then put the zipper on. Now, when I'm recording, I do this without my zipper jig, but usually if I'm bulk sewing, I'll just quickly use my zipper jig because it holds the zip for me. So get both halves on and then just pull it on like that. And then we need our zipper tabs. So you should have two. So I've done 2 waterproof canvas for the inside and then my 2 outside Rosella fabric. By the way, this fabric is from Spotlight and this is my waterproof canvas that I sell. I forgot to mention that at the start. So, what we want to do is we want to get a pen and it says we want the teeth portion to be exactly 14 inches. So I'm going to mark that. So there. So I've put a mark at each end so that it is now exactly 14 inches between my marks. Now this is an erasable pen, so that's what it says to do. All right. Do not cut it there, just mark it. Step 2. With one lining tab, so we need to grab a lining tab and lay this right sides up. And then this one right sides down. Making a zipper sandwich. So I'm doing this, making a zipper sandwich, and then I'm going to do the same to the other end. I possibly should have read through these instructions before I started recording, but that's okay. All right, a zipper sandwich like that. With one of the linings right side up, the other one right side down, make a zipper sandwich. So what I actually want to do is line this up a 1/4 inch from the end because I want the zipper portion to be exactly 14 inches. So I want to be sewing where I've marked my stuff. So now I'm just going to go back to a joining stitch length and stitch over there like that. And then I'm going to do the same to this end. So I want to be sewing so it's at the marks like this. So I've just chain stitched those, then I'm going to trim off my tails and separate them all. Like that. So we've done that, and now I'm going to top stitch. And so with it all, I'm going to top stitch here, and then I'm going to trim off any excess to make sure that it's as long as it says it needs to be. So I just want to top stitch 1/8 of an inch along here. Trim off the tails. And so in total, this now needs to be, I only need to take off 1/8 of an inch from each end to make it the length it needs to be. That's not bad. That's how long it wants to be. So, voila! Next up, we need to mark the center. So I'm going to fold it in half, ends to ends like this, and mark the center. So again, I'm going to use my friction pen, and I'm just going to make sure it's outside of the visible line. So I'm just marking it right at the edge, like this. Mark the center. Make small snips into the zipper tape along where the curve of the pocket will be. Okay, so it wants us to make little snips. I don't love the idea of cutting zipper tape. I get quite nervous about it, but I'm going to do what it says. So I'm just doing little snips. And this is going to help the zipper bend. So on the zipper tape, you can actually see it's more like a heading tape, and it's got like a herringbone design where it's zigzagging. I've just cut up to the first little bit, if that's at all helpful to you. Okay. So we've done that and that. So take the pocket exterior piece, which for me is this, and we're going to face it right sides down. At the center. So here's my center mark. So I'm going to fold this in half and find the center mark of this as well. And I'm going to do a little clip, because clipping is the easy way. Oops, I just dropped all of my scissors. That was not ideal. Okay, so I'm going to line up those top bits, and I'm going to clip it together. Right there like that. And then I want to clip it all the way around. So I'm going to then come down to the bottom to make sure that the bottom's going to line up. Grab Scully and clip along the edge like so. Then I'm going to come to the other side. I'm going to line up the bottom on the other side. Whoops. Line up the bottom on the other side. And then clip. And I'm making all of my clips face the outer panel. Lots of clips because it's a curve. I actually probably normally wouldn't clip this, but I'm doing what the pattern says to behave myself. Alright, so now we are going to stitch this down. So we're just basting it because we've still got to add another bit. So I want to stitch pretty close to the edge if I'm basting. I don't want to see these stitches later. Back stitch. Come up the edge. that the zipper is staying where you want it to. And backstitch. Trim off that tail and then put the clips back into there. Okay, step whatever we're up to. 6 complete. So now we're going to take the back pocket and the slip pocket. Is this one the slip pocket? Yeah, so this one's the slip pocket, and we're going to fold it in half. Now I'm using mainly all waterproof canvas for the inside, but for their picture, this piece was the outer fabric, but I didn't want to do that, so I'm not. And then we're going to top stitch along this edge, but about a 1/2 inch from the top edge. And back stitch as always. Trim off that tail. And then line up the bottom edge, and I'm just going to tack this in place. I'm going to start with the bottom, because we need the bottom to line up. That's important. Line it up to there, needle down, pivot, go up this side. So I'm just basting this on so that I can sew easier later. Basting is your friend. So by basting, it just means sew, but wider than the seam allowance. So now I have a little slip pocket. So I'm going to find the center of this. And then I'm going to do a little clip. And then we're going to join this clip up with the other clip and then clip it all together. Apparently I'm saying clip a lot today. So then I want to come along to the bottom and we're going to do exactly the same thing. Oopsies. So I'm going to line this up. And I clip up the straight edge and then I get to the curve. And we're going to clip it all together. So don't be afraid with how many clips you use. That's entirely up to you how many you want. But there is no right or wrong amount. Alright, so there we go. Now it's time to stitch against the zipper. So I'm going to actually now do more seam allowance than I did before because I'm going to sew up against the zip. So you also want to make sure that you're not sewing over the zip. That's very, very important. And you can usually feel... You can actually feel up in there if you need to. Stitch around. I just need to maneuver. I can feel that that zip's in the way. Now, here's the zipper pull. So I'm going to reach in and zip past this bit here, just a little bit, so that the zip's not in my way, and then sew all the way down the edge. It's important to move the zip if you want nice smooth lines. Okay, then we're going to turn it through. Maybe. Excellent. There we go. And now I just want to top stitch on the actual panel piece. So I'm going to top stitch. I'm going to pull it all nice and tight and flat. And I'm just going to top stitch along here. stitch again. Voila. Alright, I just missed a call, so I'm going to come back in a second. So I have already ironed my card slots the way that it says to do. You can actually iron my waterproof canvas and it's fine. So now I'm just going to top stitch along all of the edges, because I'm pretty sure that's what I'm meant to do, to be honest. Fold them, happy days. Alright, so let's top stitch all the edges. So I'm going to back stitch at both ends. Now this is where making multiples at the same time would be super handy, because you could chain stitch this part. So I'm just stitching 1/8 of an inch, and I'm going to trim the tails as I go so they don't get caught up in anything. Okay, so now it's all top stitched like this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stitch the sides together, just tacking it, and I'm going to start from the bottom up, because I find that the card slots are less likely to shift on me if I do it that way. That's just my personal preference. And we all know how much I hate putting things inside the throat, but stitching bottom to top, the card slots don't move, so you get a smoother, more even stitch. That's just my opinion. Okay, so now I've done that, we're going to take the card slots back, which again, in her picture is the main fabric, but I'm just doing the waterproof fabric, because I want it all waterproofy. So we're going to base that along all 3 edges. So now that I'm not worried that these things are going to move, I can just start here, needle down, pivot, go along the bottom, or in my case fall off the edge. That also works. You can sew all the way off the edge and then pivot. That's also fine. Okay. Trim off the tails again. And then I'm pretty sure, yeah, so we're taking these pieces. Now, you want to put your card slots up the correct way to make sure that you're putting your pattern the right way. So I'm going to put this one on this side just because I can. And we're sewing it with a small seam allowance. These are the things I have to check because I've never made it before. But the card slots were actually quite easy. I like that. Okay, I'm going to backstitch when we get to the bottom. And again, pull it out. And then I'm going to do the other one. So again, I'm going to hold it the right way to make sure that my print's the right way. But then I'm going to stitch it bottom to top so that the bulk is out of my machine. Because that's just what I do. Okay, and then we're going to press this open. So I'm just going to finger press it and stitch 1/8 of an inch. Top stitch that down. Pull that out, trim off those tails. Come on, there we go. And then open this one out and do this side as well. You'll notice I didn't back stitch. That's partly because I'm lazy, but I should have. Okay, so now we're going to take our template piece. And so the bottom edge has to go to the bottom edge in the center. So if you need to, fold this in half to find the center and just do a little clip. And then you can match up the center of this with the center of your pattern. Now I'm holding it upside down just because I prefer not to show pattern pieces that aren't my own. And so now we're just going to trace this onto the fabric and chop off the excess. Like so. Actually, I'm not going to put that there. I'm going to put it back in the box so it's out of my way. Now, I was a bit careless when I was cutting this pattern out. So I'll trim that to make it even, and then we're going to just cut up and around. Yep. And that's why it didn't matter that I didn't backstitch, because I would have just cut it all off anyway. Alright, put your excess rubbish parts in the bin so that they are out of your way. I'm a big believer of being out of your way. And so now you should have this ready. So you've got a back slip that goes all the way to the bottom, and we've sealed it, and then you've got your card slots. So now we are going to attach this piece to our main body piece, which is this piece here. So I imagine we're going to have to clip the zipper again. We are. So I've got my center mark. I'm going to make it a little bit bigger so that I can see it a little bit better. You can also transfer it to the back if you need to. So you can draw it on both sides, but that's the center. And then I'm just going to take my scissors and do some little clips. Just little ones. You don't want to do it too big because you don't want to clip it through where you're going to stitch, because then the holes will be on the wrong side of the zipperness. So I'm just doing little clips, like really little clips along the edge. If you want to, you could probably use these, but I try to just save them for thread only for the most part. That's why I got these fun little scissors. Okay. So now, got a lot of stuff going on. Hold on a second. Right. Let's do that. So I'm going to fold this in half so I can find the center of this and clip it. And then we're just going to match this center line with that center line. But we want it to sit in like this. So we're actually going to flip it over and clip it so it looks upside down. And then clip it. And then we're going to come around and clip the bottom like we did with the other piece to make sure that everything's going to fit, because fitting is important. Grab a bunch of clips and just add them in. Like that. And then we're going to do the same to the other half. So we're going to start at the bottom, make sure it's even, clip it in place, add extra clips to make sure it all stays in place. This is actually coming along quite nicely. If I was making this for a child, I would actually skip this whole pocket bit, most likely, or I'd just do a slip pocket, maybe. But I do like that it's got card slots and things. So, now that it's clipped, what does it say to do? We're gonna stitch this. So I'm gonna start from the bottom edge here, and I'm just gonna baste everything in place, because I've still got to add my back piece yet. So I'm basting this further back than my final stitching, because I still have to add the other piece, and I don't want to see this stitching in my other piece, if that makes sense. So that's now basted. So it looks like this. And so now we need to find the center of the top of this and clip it. And then that is going to add into here. And then we're going to stitch it down. So when you zip it open, it will all be done. So we just want to put right sides in like so. And then I'm going to add 3 clips at the top so it doesn't shift on me. And then I'm going to come down to the side and clip here and there. And up we go. As many clips as you need. There's no right or wrong number of clips. I always clip more on curves than straights because it works better. Straights don't tend to shift as much as curves. And we want this to look nice. So off we go. Whoops, dropping everything. Okay. Look at that. So now we have to stitch this down. So I'm going to stitch it from the top and then just kind of shove all of this out of the way like this. So we're going to do a slightly bigger seam allowance than we did for the first bit. You want to make sure, I just run out of bobbin thread. You want to make sure that your stitches are going to be on the inside of the last lot of basting stitches, and that way we're not going to see that original stitching. So I'm going to hit pause while I do another bobbin, and then we'll be right back. Bobbin has been acquired, so I'm just going to start a couple of stitches back from where I ran out of thread and continue around. So I'm using this finger to make sure that there's no zipper where I'm trying to stitch. So I'm just kind of feeling before I stitch. Now, I'm going to keep the needle down there. And then I'm just going to move this zipper back to where I've already stitched so that it's out of the way. So again, we're just moving around slowly and making sure that the zipper is not caught in my stitches. And then back stitch like so. Look at that. So now, from the outside, you should be able to unzip it, and you should now have a back slip pocket and then, or a back card slot and slip pocket, and then a slip pocket on that front. All done. What's next? Okay, so now with right sides together, we're going to stitch this around. So straight down this side. Oop. So we're going to line it up. Now, if you need to, definitely add some clips. I'm not going to because I'm just going to hold it as I go. Like that, and then trim off those tails everywhere. So now we have a loop. Alright. So now what it wants us to do is find the center. So the center of this will go with the center where the seam is, and then we're going to pull it out to the sides, and I'm just going to clip there and there, like that. Okay, and then we're going to take our base. Now my base has got the extra heavy stuff because I didn't try, but I didn't think it was going to stick to my waterproof stuff, so I just didn't bother. Not going to lie, didn't even bother, just stuck it to the outside. And I didn't want to stitch it to the waterproof bottom because then where the stitches are, it would be waterproof. That was just my choice. All right, so now we're going to start attaching this. So I'm going to first of all clip at this seam, and I'm going to do 3 clips because one never holds it quite as well as we hope. And then I'm going to come and I'm going to do the opposite side. So I'm going to clip it or join it here. And then I'm going to do 3 clips here as well. You might be wondering, why am I doing so many clips? Now it won't shift while I'm trying to attach everything. Then I'm going to come to this side, and where the side clip is, the little notches, I'm going to match up the side notches and add 3 wonder clips. One, 2, and 3. And then I'm going to do the same to the notches on the other side. So match the notch to the notch. And you should be noticing that the waterproof canvas sits perfectly snug within this section. Now, expect a little bit of puckering right at the edge, but there should be no puckering where the base is. So if you see my base, it's sitting in there perfectly, but I've got a couple of little puckers here. That's actually fine. You can go ahead and ignore them. They're not going to affect our day. But we are going to put lots and lots of clips on this so it doesn't shift while I'm trying to stitch it. I know some people have been using staples to hold it in place. Honestly, it's whatever makes you happy. There's not really a right and a wrong response. I personally don't like staples. The one time I tried to staple stuff, it didn't work. And even if I did get it to work, I'd then have to spend all that time pulling out the staples. So I would just prefer to put a crap ton of these wonder clips in, I think, like so. Seems like a lot, but it's going to hold everything in place while I stitch it. So now I'm just going to push here and kind of basically dint the base. But so that it's out of the way, I'm going to pull 1 clip out so that I can get my foot in. And before I put the foot down, I'm going to put the needle down. Then I can move the clip and put the foot down, because once the needle's in, it can't shift any further. So I'm going to do a couple of stitches and then back stitch. Now, this is a 3D object, so we're going to hold it like a 3D object. We're not going to try and make it completely flat. We're going to actually hold it up and then just stitch around. So you'll notice I'm bringing this around as I'm sewing, and I'm making sure that it is sitting up, because we're going to get a better response, I think. You always want to try and stop with the needle in the down position, and that way you can readjust everything as you go. All in all, I'm pretty happy with how that went, but we're gonna just check it. So if you want to, you can actually turn it out just to check the bottom. Now, keeping in mind I haven't clipped it yet, I'm actually just looking for any kind of puckers, but I got none. I know it's sitting funny, but that's because I've got to go back and clip the inside yet of the excess seam allowance. But I'm actually quite happy that that worked out first time. 3D object, lots of clips. I'm going to attempt to see if my zigzag scissors will cut this, although they're pretty blunt, so I don't have high hopes. What the zigzag scissors are doing is it's almost like notching, but quicker. So I'm cutting off this excess. Now here's where my scissors are going to struggle. I don't think I'm going to get through that bit, so I'm not even going to bother trying. I'll just get my heavier scissors for that bit. There's too many layers there, especially for blunt scissors. So then I'm going to take my knife edge ones. So these are what I buy to cut through lots of layers, and I'm just going to cut it close to the edge. And so now when I turn this out, we should see that the base will sit a lot smoother. See, it does. On this thick part here, I will be doing the Tory squish, but we'll do that at the end. not yet. Okay, so I'm going to turn that one back inside out again, but I just wanted to check and make sure everything's happy, and it is. What do they want me to do next? Done that. All right, so we're going to do the lining one. So we're just going to grab the lining and sew this down here, making sure we backstitch, like so. And we're basically going to do the same thing we just did to the outer one. So we're going to bend it and make it flat, so that's a halfway notch. And then we're going to match the notch with the seam, and we can press this seam open. I'm just going to do it with my fingers because that'll work. So match the seam here with the opposite, come out, notch it, other side, come out, notch it. So we should now have our 4 notches. We then need our other base. So again, fold it in half, notches all round, fold it the other way. You can fold it right sides or wrong sides together, it doesn't matter. You get the same result. So now I've got notches there and notches here. So I'm going to start with this one because I want to hold the seam open. And I'm going to add 3 clips, and I want my clips facing the base piece. Like so. Now this one should be much more pliable and easier to work with because it's thinner, unless you put your heavy piece of stabilizer on this instead of the outside, in which case the other one would have been the easier one. I mean, if you wanted the world's stiffest base, I suppose you could put it on both. But that to me just seems a little excessive. Once it's got a drink bottle in it, it's going to hold its own anyway. But there are not really many wrong answers, so you can do it however you like. So again, now I'm pushing my thumbs to create the curve to make sure that I'm dispersing that excess evenly. And then I'm just going to add a lot of clips. And they're all facing the base. So you can go wherever you like. There's no right or wrong spot to start and finish. I'm currently doing the opposite part. So long as it's smooth pretty much where the clips end, you shouldn't have a problem. So we're bound to get a little bit of puckering this side of the seam allowance. Move that down. Last side. So we want to clip it all before we take off clips to sew it. You just want to make sure it's all good everywhere. So that's a lot of clips, but we're all good. So again, we're just going to pick a spot, any spot. I'm going to go here. And we're going to stitch. Now we're still holding it as a 3D object. It's just smoother because there's no heavy interfacing in the way. But that doesn't take away from the fact that it is, in fact, still a curve. So we still need to treat it as such if we expect to get a good result. Like that. And then zigzag scissors, which are also known as pinking shears, but I prefer to say zigzag scissors. They sound more fun. And I'm just going to cut off the excess. Now, 2 reasons we want to cut off the excess on both pieces. 1 is it's going to sit nicer. And 2 is because creates less bulk. So it's going to sit nicer in the circle. And these, when they're together, are also going to sit nicer that way as well. Okay, home stretch. So I'm going to take my, what would have been D-ring tabs for you, but I'm putting my clips on. And I'm just going to stick a piece of double-sided tape down the center. Now, because these are cotton, you are more than welcome to iron them instead, but my iron's not on and I'm not pausing the video again if I can help it. For the most part, I like to have a smooth, continuous video. It doesn't always work that way, but I like to try. I'm just trimming off those excessy little hairy bits. And then I'm going to fold both sides into what looks like to me to be the center. You can rule a line before you put your tape on if you want them perfectly 100% centered. But I'm pretty good at eyeballing it these days. I've done it often enough. I have done this save maneuver at least 1,000 times with how many bags and strap connectors I've done. So, now that we've got that, we're going to slide. You might have a D-ring. I'm doing the strap connector. Swivel clip, whatever you want to call it. And I stitch them both together like this. It's nice and tight up against the metal so that there's not going to be any gaps. Swivel, needle down, back stitch. Right. And now I have strap connectors. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to place them wrong sides up along this edge. I'm pretty sure that's what we're doing. That. Oh, they want them shorter. So I'll just push it up further to have them shorter. You can just chop off some excess. Whatever excess I cut off this one, I can just line it up, cut it off the other one. There we go. Happy days. So we're going to put it raw edge to raw edge, and I'm going to use 2 clips to clip that in place. And then same with this. Like this and like this. Now before I join this to that, it's saying that we need to create a little bit of a hole in this side. So I'm just going to clip probably 15 stitches. 3, 6, 9, 12, 15. So if I pull all these backing pieces out, if you clip every 3rd stitch, you can actually just pull out the excess like that. But I'm also going to back stitch the end of that gap to make sure that it doesn't come undone any further, because if it overly comes undone, we're going to have a new problem on our hands. So that's where we want to now turn this through. So I'm going to turn this one right sides out. Ah, look at that beautiful curve. And so now I've got a little bit of a hole in the side here. So I'm just going to push this one inside the other one and then line up the short edges first. I always do short edges first. It's a habit I'm in. I like the habit. It's a good habit as opposed to my many, many bad habits. Line that up there. Clip, clip. And so now we can go ahead and line up the rest. So there. And you can add a few extra clips into this curve if you want to. Like so. Whatever you are comfortable with. Alright, that's probably enough clips. One more to make it symmetrical. Right, so now I'm going to clear all the stuff off my bench because it's good to have a clean workspace. And I'm now going to stitch. I'm going to start at the short edge. So I'm going to stitch across, around, across, around. And I'm going to back stitch this bit because that's going to hold the weight of your drink bottle. Even though I'm using thick thread that I have all the faith in the world in, this stuff's insane. I'm going to clean up the clips off my table as I go so that they aren't in my way. And then we're going to go across and back and across, needle down, flip it and pivot. Now you can sew this lining side up or exterior side up. There's no right or wrong response there. And then if you want to, you can come to these short edges and just do a little bit of a zigzag to give it like a little bit extra hold. It's probably not necessary. Drink bottles aren't that heavy. But I just hate to see your strap let go. So this is like a little bit of a security measure so that it's not going to happen. So I'll show you this up close. I've just zigzagged back and forth on different angles, and that's just extra precautions. Zigzag scissors again, little pinking shears. And I'm going to cut this curve so that when I turn it through, it's going to sit really nicely, because obviously sitting nice is the end result that we're aiming for. Although my pinking shears are definitely done and dusted, I might have to buy a new pair in the new year because they're pretty done. But I don't see me going to Spotlight between now and till after Christmas, so it will have to wait. Besides, it's getting quite close to Christmas. Right. And so now, we're going to turn the bag through our little hole that we made. Now, the bigger the hole that you make, the easier it'll be to turn, but the more you've got to stitch up. So it's like a 6 in one, half a dozen in the other kind of a problem. I can also grab the clips and pull the clips through, and then they won't damage anything. And then from there, you should just be able to maneuver. So I'm just grabbing and I'm pulling on an angle like this. I don't just pull straight out. That's how you pop stitches or wreck fabric. Doesn't matter how strong it is, you are stronger than the fabric, and so you're most likely going to rip it if you just pull. So on the angle is a nice gentle way to turn your bag. And it is coming. It may not look like it, but it is. You can even squish this down and come to the pocket lining part and push this in there. Once it's inside, it'll be much easier to deal with. So I'm just squishing that and pushing, like so. Now before I finish turning it out, I'm actually just going to stitch this little hole shut. So my little hole was only from there to there big. It wasn't huge, which means it's going to be easier to stitch shut. But it was slightly more fiddly to turn. That's a gamble you need to figure out which way you want to go. Bigger hole or smaller hole and harder to turn. I'm just going to trim off the tails, and then I'm going to get my lighter and just singe all the little fluffy bits I've got going on. I've got another big one here. Okay. So now I can reach in and pull out this base. And then I'm going to turn this in and push in the base. that all base stuff is now even and beautiful, like so. And so now I just want to top stitch this edge. So I'm going to start right here on a strap connector part, needle down, and then we're going to pivot down and around. Now I'm doing a 1/8 seam allowance here, or stitch, yeah, seam allowance. If you're new to bag making and super new to top stitching, you might want to do a 1/4 inch. It will still look nice, but that extra little bit means that you're less likely to run off the edge of your fabric, and only you will notice if you did an 1/8 of an inch or a 1/4 of an inch. I probably wouldn't even notice in a photo. I just look at it and go, yeah, that looks awesome. And then back stitch, pull it out, and voila. I don't have a drink bottle. Let me get a drink bottle. Ouch. Look at that. So now with these clips, you can either clip this to a bag, you could clip it to itself like this if you wanted to, and then have it like clipped around a backpack handle so that it's easy to get to, or you can just clip it to the actual strap. So I really like this. I really like that I decided to do it this way. But there you go, guys. One drink bottle holder. I hope that was helpful somewhat. And yeah, until the next video, guys. Bye.